So in this session, we'll be looking at what makes an effective leader and what differentiates leaders from non-leaders. First, we'll be looking into few theories like triad theories, which dominated the study of leadership up to the 1940s. Then we'll be discussing about behavioral theories, which were popular until the late 1960s. Next, we'll be introducing contingency and interactive theories, and later we'll be discussing about the contemporary approach like charismatic transformational leaderships. Okay, so before we get into all these leadership theories, first we'll be like discussing about what is leadership and what is the differentiation between a manager and a leader. Okay, so here you see few pictures of leaders like Abraham Lincoln, Mother Teresa, and Mahatma Gandhi. So here these people has evolved as leaders. Okay, so based on the situations they are in and based on what they are by themselves within, so they have themselves evolved as leaders and helped people to overcome their difficulties. Okay, so we're gonna remember them as leaders until we die, and the history is gonna go over until the earth revolves, right? So let's see like how these kind of leaderships can be like made. How can we make leaders, or we'll be like discussing about whether leaders are made or are they born. Okay. So leadership is nothing but when a person has the trait of leading people, influencing people, commanding them, and guiding them. So when a person is able to do all these things, you can tell that person possesses a leadership trait. Okay, and most of the times leadership and management is being like confused. Okay, so good management brings about order and consistency by drawing up formal plans, designing organization structures, and monitoring results against the plans that we have been discussing all this right now. Whereas leadership, in contrast, is about coping up with change. Leaders establish direction by developing a vision of the future. They align people by communicating this vision and inspire them to overcome hurdles. Okay. So there are different types of leaders. Okay. First one, a leader who has got that position because of his job designation. Maybe a person who is a founder or CEO or a manager, you can call that as a leader who got that position, who got the leadership position because of his job. And next one is the leader by personality or charisma. Just because he got that right, you can call himself a leader. He'll be able to influence others. Okay, he has that charisma within himself. And next one is a leader by moral example. A person who is like always do a good things, who follows the rules, who's very ethical, you can call that person as a leader by moral example. A leader by power held, because of the power he possesses, sometimes people themselves as leaders. And next one is intellectual leader. When a person is like has a good knowledge, good intellectual quotient, you can that person evolves and you can call that person as an intellectual leader. Leader because of the ability to accomplish things. Sometimes with all these things, some people cannot able to finish a task, but sometimes a person when he wants, he will be able to like finish that task. So that person can be a good manager. So that is a person who has evolved because of his nature of accomplishing things. So this is the different types of leaders. Okay, let's see what is leadership and management. What is the difference between them? As I've told you earlier, leadership is the ability to influence people and make them to a task so that they will be able to achieve a goal. So that is leadership. Whereas management is like you have that a job, you have it as a job, you have it as a designation, a formal rank as a manager, and because of that, you being a manager, other people obey you and complete that task for you. So that is management. Whereas in leadership, you may or may not have that kind of a job designation, but you will be able to influence a group towards the achievement of goals. That is leadership. Okay, so let's see the difference between managers and leaders. So managers focus on the things, whereas the leaders, they focus on people. Okay, so managers, they do the things right, whereas leaders do right things. Managers plan, organize, direct, control, and follow the rules, all these things. Whereas here leaders, they inspire people, they influence them, they motivate them to work, they build teams, they build people, they shape them, they shape people as well as they make them as a whole person, as well as they shape entities, they shape organizations. Okay, so that's a real difference. So sometimes like leaders, they emerge within the group. So you may be a manager who's like organized, who's managing a team. Sometimes you can call yourself a leader, but sometimes a leader can be part of your team who emerges within your team, and you need not to be a manager by designation. But sometimes it's the other way around. Okay, so you can leaders emerge within the group, or sometimes within the, or by the formal appointment itself. Okay, we can't know, it can happen anyway. Okay, so there are like few theories that we will be like discussing about this. These are the few theories that you have. Okay, tribe theories, behavioral theories, contingency theories, leader member exchange theory, charismatic and transformational leadership, authentic leadership, and mentoring. Okay, these are the few important leadership theories that you have. Okay, the first one is a tribe theory. Okay, so these are very old theories, which was been in the practice, or which was famous during the 1940s to 60s. Okay, so I think you already know about the 5 important personality traits, or big 5 traits, it's called as. So when a person is said to have these 5 important traits, you can call that person as leader. Based on the traits a person possesses, you call himself a leader or a non-leader. Okay, these five traits, I think you might have like come across this already. These 5 traits are extraversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to experience, emotional stability. So what is extraversion? Okay, so then like you all already know that there are 2 types of person, extrovert and introvert. The extrovert person who always love to mingle with people, where introvert is kind of shy, never goes out, things like that, right? So this extroverts get their energy from interacting with others, while introverts get their energy from within themselves. Okay, so this extrovert people, they include the traits of energetic, talkative, assertive. So this is one of a leadership trait. So people say a person with with good degree of extroversion can be a leader. Okay, so actually this theory is like kind of not proven right. There's a lot of controversy going on. So this theory says that being an introvert you can't be leader, but that's not true. Right, I hope you all know this right now, but this theory was in practice around long back. Okay, so next one is agreeableness. So these individuals are like friendly, cooperative, and compassionate. People with low agreeables are maybe more distant. Traits include being kind, affectionate, and sympathetic. I mean, you mostly people like who like these people, peoples with this agreeable trait. Okay. Next one is conscientious. People that have a high degree of this trait are reliable and prompt. So traits include being organized, methodic, and thorough, and they wish to do these things, and they wish to get this job done. Okay, so that is a important trait here. Next one is openness to experience. Here, the people who like to learn new things and enjoy new experiences, they perform well in this trait. Okay, so these traits include being insightful, imaginative, and having a wide variety of interest. Okay, next one is emotional stability. This trait is also called as neuroticism. Okay, so this actually relates to one emotional stability and degree of negative emotions. Okay, so people with very good emotional stability, they don't have negative emotions, they don't get moody and tense very easily, they know about themselves, right? So you have to have a very good stable emotions to lead others, right? So people this theory says when you have the very good traits of this, yeah, you can like call yourself a leader. So people they were able to differentiate people between people as like leaders and non-leaders based on the traits they have. Okay, so when you have these all these traits, doesn't mean that you will be like very successful in your leadership. Okay, so this is not like acceptable in all the situations. Okay, so there's always a cause and effect, but this theory cannot able to give us a good example for this. Okay, so here this theory was not proven. There's a lot of limitations to the stride theory. Okay, next comes the behavioral approach. After like 1960s, when this stride theories went over, two important behavioral approaches came in. One was like put forward by Ohio State Universities, and next by University of Michigan. The professors who were working in these universities, like they gave us two important behavioral approaches theory. So it is actually based on um, whether the manager or a leader is people oriented or task oriented. Okay, so the common assumption these behavioral approach theories had is like the leaders can be trained. So far, like until the first previous days, they were always thinking leaders can only be born, they can't be made. They were like thinking about that. Only after behavioral approach, people decided, okay, you can study management, you can study leadership, and you can train yourself to be a leader. They got to know this. Okay, and then so here the important goal of this behavioral approach theories is to like develop leaders, but you can't call yourself like call this theories like this behaviors cannot be like put forward in all the situations. So that leads to contingent theories later, but we'll discuss the first two behavioral theories before we move on to the contingency theories. Okay, contingency means situation for information. Okay, so let's discuss into what this Ohio State University did in 1940s. Okay, so they identify two important traits: initiating structure and consideration. Okay, so initiating structure is nothing but a forming an organization structure, the extent to which a leader is able to define and structure his role as well as his people's role, his team's role to achieve goal. Okay, the extent to which you're able to like form an organization structure, give a job description, a designation, and authority, coordination, everything. When you're able to do it, that is called initiative structure. It is completely about task management. Whereas consideration is nothing but the relationship, how he handles the relationship between himself and his team. Okay, so there should be like you should be able to create a mutual trust and you should be able to respect his people's ideas and how he treat their feelings, as well as how he like treat his own feelings. Okay, so we have like initiating structure on the x-axis and consideration on the y-axis. So when the initiating structure is low, when the consideration is also low, there is low consent for production and low consent for people. Okay, so there is no structure as well as no consideration, which means you're not taking your giving importance to task as well as for your people. Okay, when your initiating structure is low but your consideration high, so you give more concern for your production because you give more importance to the organization structure and low concern for your people. Okay, here you give more production importance to your production, but low concern for your production because the initiating structure is less, but you have more concern for your people. In this case, your people will not perform; they will be just chatting. But here, your people will perform because you have good concern for production, but they might leave the organization. They don't have a good trust with you. Okay, whereas here nothing happens. Your people will not stay as well as you will not be able to get profits. Whereas here in the with a very good consideration and very good initiating structure, you respect people because you have good concern for them, as well as the people work hard and they are able to produce more, so that you will be able to get more revenues. So that's the ideal structure to have. Okay, so this theory was like later revised and it is called as a managerial grid. This is revised by Blake and Mountain. Okay, so here we have the concern for production in the x-axis with 1 to 9 categories, and here we have concern for people. So we have 1, here your organization will not thrive because you're not taking care of your people as well as your production, whereas here you're very much concerned about your production but not for people. So people will leave, but you'll be able to produce more right now, but you don't have a future. Whereas here concern for people is very high, so you will give more importance to people but you don't care about the organization, your profits, so organization will fall. Here 9,9. This is very ideal structure, but sometimes it may not be possible always, because you can't give importance to both of them always. Okay, so in that case we have here 5,5 where you're able to give importance to both of them at the right time. Okay, so this structure is called as a managerial grid, and this has been proposed by Blake and Mountain. Okay, so it gives us an 81 different types of leadership styles. Okay, so here you have 9 points, and here you have 9 points, so 9 into 9, it's 81. So you got to get 81 different types of leadership styles based out of the managerial grid. Okay, which is proposed by Blake and Mountain. Okay, next we get into the University of Michigan studies, which is also another behavioral approach. Okay, so here he says there's two types of leaders: employee oriented or a production oriented leader. Whereas employee oriented leader gives more emphasis on interpersonal relationships that take interest on the needs of the employees and things like that, whereas in the it's other way around. In the production oriented leader, they just give more importance to the tasks aspects of the job. Okay, it's kind of more similar to a previous study. Okay, next, since it was not able to like perform well, all this behavioral approach is kind of faded later, which led to a contingency approaches, the contingency theories. Okay, so there were like three important contingency theories. First one is Fiedler contingency theory. Next is Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership model. Third one is path goal theory. So all these theories have different assumptions. Okay, so Filters says the leader's style is always fixed. Okay, if you have a problem, you have to change the leader, but not a you have to change your leader. That's what he says. But others believed that leadership style can be changed, and it should be changed based on the contingencies that they face. Okay, let's get into all these theories one by one. Okay, first one is Fiedler's contingency theory. So what is it? It says, okay, it says the group performance, a team's performance actually depends on the leader's style and based on the situation that they are in. Okay, so every time when the company is doing good, it is not only based on the leader, it also based on the situation that the company or the team is in. Okay, actually, like Fielder, he created a questionnaire called as a least preferred co-worker questionnaire, which is helped to identify the style of a leader, whether that person is a task oriented leader or a relationship oriented leader in a particular situation. Okay, he created this questionnaire. So this questionnaire asked respondents to think of all the co-workers they have ever had and describe the one person they have least enjoyed working with by rating that person on a scale of 1 to 8 for each of the 16 set of contrasting objectives. Okay, so imagine if you're a leader, you have to like say which a person you enjoyed working with, and you have to rate them from 1 to 8 for different objectives, such as like pleasant or unpleasant, efficient or inefficient, open or guarded, supportive or hostile. So you have to do that. Okay, if you describe that person that you are least able to work with in favorable terms, you would be allotted that you are a relationship oriented leader. Though the person that you don't like work with, you're giving him good marks, which means you're relationship oriented. In contrast, if you see the least preferred co-worker in the relatively unfavorable terms, which means you give a very low score, you're primarily interested in the productivity and task. You're not more concerned about the relationships. Okay, so when the studies happened, almost 16% of the respondents gave the values in the middle range. Only the 84% of the people had high or low scores. Okay, so they were 84% of the people were able to distinguish whether he is a task-oriented leader or an employee-oriented leader. But the remaining 16%, they were not able to differentiate whether how these people were. Okay, so which means their leadership style is not fixed. Okay, so but Fielder's contingency says that if you have a different situation and you have to want if you want a different solution, you have to replace the leader and the situation, because a person's leadership style is fixed, which is actually not true. Okay, so this is the findings from his study. Okay, so here the x-axis you have the conditions, the y-axis we have performance. So in the favorable conditions, the performance of a relationship, this is a relationship oriented graph, the performance of the relationship oriented leader is very less. In the moderate conditions it goes up, and in unfavorable condition it goes down. Okay, in the favorable conditions, task oriented leaders perform well, and also in unfavorable conditions they perform well, but in the moderate conditions they don't perform well. So it says that you have to be a task oriented reader when the conditions are favorable and unfavorable, but when the conditions are moderate, you have to be relationship oriented. That's the inference from this model. Okay, so here this has been explained as well. So we have like 8 categories. So leader member relationship, it's like it's good until the first 4 categories, and it goes poor here. And the power is also like it goes strong and weak, but the task structure it goes high and high. The first 2 conditions, low and low here, and it goes high and high, low and low. Okay, the same thing it goes here based on the structure. I mean, you're able to like give the predictions. For the task structure it is high and low, it's high here in the first 2 quadrants, and the third and fourth it decreases, it's low. Okay, it increases. Okay, that's how it works. So based on that your position power is derived. Okay, this is the findings from the Fielder model. The next one is Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership. So this theory states that if your followers, if your team is ready, they don't require any support or supervision. Okay, so if the team is like very much ready and they are like able to do everything they don't need supervision. It's right? So that's what this diagram says. So if the amount of follower readiness increases, so as we go along, it increases. The amount of leader support or supervision needed, it decreases. The white portion decreases as the orange portion increases. Okay, so this is a situational leadership theory which was like proposed by Hersey and Blanchard. Okay, next one is path goal theory. This is proposed by Robert House. This is actually based on the Ohio State University studies, the behavioral approach studies we discussed, right? So it is based on the study. They said, okay, initiating structure and consideration is very important, but apart from that, the leaders should be able to provide few things so that the team can achieve their goals. So the leader should be able to give the information the team needs so that they can perform the task, and the leader should support the team, and they also like provide whatever resources that they need so that they will be able to do the task so that they can be achieve the goal. So the leader should be able to create the path for the people to achieve their goal. That's why it is called as path goal theory. Okay, so when we do it, so the leader is actually reducing the roadblocks within the path so that they can achieve the task. Okay, it's a combination of both initiating structure and consideration, and being people oriented as well as task oriented. So you tell them the task, but to do the task you are creating a path for them by giving them the information, by giving them support, whatever they need. Okay, so that is called as path goal theory. Next one is leader member exchange theory. Okay, this is actually a common theory, which common situation which happens everywhere. Okay, so it's otherwise called as LMX model. Okay, so when you have a team, okay, imagine you're managing a team of 10 people, and both of them are like are doing the same task. Sometimes you might had a chance to interact with few people again and again. Okay, so because of that you might become more compatible with that person, you become more comfortable, and you will be like able to get to know them better, so that you will be able to trust them, because just because you started talking to them more, you're having too many interactions when compared to the other people, you start to trust them more. Okay, so you were able to like you can there is the informal group which is like created. Okay, so here when you see the diagram, you have like 6 subordinates, and with the 3 of them you're maintaining only the formal relationship, but here you're having an informal relationship with them, though you are in the organization structure. So you call this people as in group and the other people as out group, though all the 6 people like report to you. They do the task that whatever they tell you, but you have a special bond between these people in the in group because you have a good interactions with them. Okay, this actually like really happens everywhere, and why this happens nobody knows. Nobody is able to like find this out. This is really happening. And and when this kind of in groups and out groups form, the leaders tend to trust the people in the in groups more. Okay, and most probably when the promotions or when a hike happens, the people in the in group tend to get good support of the leader when compared to the people in the out groups. Okay, it's been kind of like proven with the research of with among the research of 287 software developers. Okay, and all the software developers were like given a questionnaire and asked to like mark about their relationship between the leader, and even their supervisors gave them their feedback. So based on that, they were found out who belongs to in group and out group, and how their performance is rated, and how their salaries were like they given more salary or hikes or promotion. All these were like found out, and it is like kind of proven also. Okay, so all our contingency theories is over. Next, we will be moving into contemporary issues in leadership, or you can call that as a we'll be like talking about charismatic leadership and transformational leadership. Okay, these are two things that we will be discussing right now. So, what is charismatic leadership? For that, you have to understand what is charisma, right? So, what is charisma? So, it's nothing but an attractiveness or a charm a person has. Okay, so when you have that particular charm or attractiveness, people will get inspired by seeing you. They get devoted to you. Okay, they'll do whatever you say. Okay, so you can't just like create that. That has to like come within by practice. You have to develop yourself. You have to like get that charisma. Okay, by being yourself. Okay, so what is this charismatic leadership theory states? Actually, the follower actually uh, believe that the leader has a heroic or an extraordinary ability. Okay, they see that actually they don't even believe, they believe it because they see it. Okay, when they see whatever they do, they see these kind of traits and they believe them. Okay. Okay, so what is the characteristics that these people have? Okay, they have a vision. Okay, are willing to take their personal risk because they want to achieve this vision. So when you say that vision is not or their vision, okay, I want to get promoted, that's not their vision. They have a common goal and they are willing to take personal risk. They sacrifice their personal comfortness to achieve that goal. Okay, and they're very sensitive to the team needs. Okay, and the few behaviors that they have, they're kind of totally extraordinary. Okay, that's why people get inspired to them. Okay, so there's a lot of questions being asked that is this charismatic leaders are born or made? Okay, so most of the people believe that they're born. It's not true. You can even like inculcate these kind of habits within yourself. Okay, but there's a lot of higher benefits to this as well. Okay, we'll be discussing. Okay, next is like transformational leadership. Okay, this transformational leadership is like a completely opposite to transactional leadership. So we have been like discussing about this Ohio studies and all, right? So those are the very good examples of transactional leaders. They form a structure and they ask the peoples to accomplish the task. Whereas in the transformation leaders, they inspire the followers, the team, to achieve the goal, okay, by forgoing their own self-interests. Okay, okay, guys, just give me a minute. I'll be back in a minute. Okay.